if you're going through any hard thing, you have to focus on what's useful, and what's useful to you is unique to you. So someone might say, you need to go on a camping trip or you need to get away. But for you, it might be more useful for you to sleep and stay home for the whole weekend. Welcome to Help Me Please. This will be a monthly episode of Mentor Buffet where I answer listeners' questions. Let's get into it. Alex, who's 33, says, I'm a painter and I dropped out of my psychology PhD to continue pursuing painting. I don't feel like I have progressed with my art. I have a very successful artist group of friends and I know it's possible, but when there's no steady prospects on the horizon, I freak out because I left a steady career for this. So I guess I'm asking, how do you deal with self-doubt when you're chasing creative goals? If you're trying to do something really hard and you are trying to make an artistic career sustainable, you have to give yourself a window where you don't need it to be sustainable and you have to take care of your basics. I think that if you're going to pursue this creative dream of yours, which you are, you need to give yourself a window of time to pursue that dream without questioning, can I do it or not, right? We need to be like in an incubator. And then once we commit to that, so if you're really diving in for the next year of chasing this dream, the way that I recommend dealing with self-doubt is treating that feeling as well as all your feelings. I don't know what's going to come up. Fear, maybe good feelings, everything. Treat them like stuffed animals in the driver's seat of a minivan that you are driving. You wake up in the morning and you have these negative thoughts. Great. Acknowledge them. They're real. There's a little stuffed animal next to you and you're still going to drive the car. Here's another recommendation. I think you should complete the sentence. So if you have a negative thought in your head about yourself that's repeating, I don't know what your self-doubt actually sounds like, but whatever it is, try and finish the sentence with something that means you're going to keep going. So if it's like, I'm not good enough, then you could finish that sentence with, and I'm going to try anyway, or I don't know if I'm good enough. But I might be. Like, you just finish that sentence for yourself and create a response where no matter if you know your negative thoughts and they repeat and you get to know them, you can have a response and you need to be disciplined enough to give yourself that response. And then you might even have a sense of humor about it. I have negative thoughts that repeat and I always finish the sentence. That's a new thing and it's really helping me and it makes me laugh because I'll say something really mean to myself and then I'll finish it with like, but I might be good enough. And it really works. And I think about this conversation I had with Rainn Wilson where we talked about ourselves as kind of Pixar characters and that we look at characters in these movies and we love them because they're just trying their best. And we don't look at ourselves that way often. We take ourselves so seriously. And so I think if you can turn the lens on yourself and see yourself as this try hard character, you will start to admire yourself more. And you might admire that you show up every day. You might admire that you're courageous. You might admire that you left the career that was stable for you, which is really hard to do. So if you really put yourself in perspective, you start to see yourself as you might see a character in an awesome movie. So Alex, you also talked about your friends being successful artists around you. And the question I'd have is, have you talked to them if you trust that they are there for you in that way? And have you asked them for their honest feedback? When I get criticism, I try to take it in like blood work, where just because I didn't check my blood doesn't mean my cholesterol is good or my iron is high enough. It means that I didn't want the information. So I try to get the information from people and look at it like it's blood work and decide, what am I going to do with this information? And it feels a lot less personal that way, even though criticism is very personal. And it feels like I can look at my work and what I can do differently in a more objective way. But mostly, Alex, I think it's rad that you left your job and that you want to be a painter. I think you should make sure that you can give yourself a window of time to chase this dream. And I can't wait to see your paintings. Okay, Laura, who's 34, says, I'm going through a divorce. Do you have any words of wisdom? Yeah. So, Laura, Well, yeah, I do have words of wisdom. And the words of wisdom, I went through a divorce, which is really, I don't always like identify with it. I don't think we always identify with our experiences, especially the ones that we didn't expect. And so I think to first tell yourself that you are getting a divorce, but you are not a divorce. And I'm only laughing because I think sometimes we take it in as if the things that happen to us or the things we have to do are who we are instead of they are things that we're taking, that we're going through. I have a friend, Sam Perry, who gave me this advice once. We were on a run, and she told me that she sees every experience in her life, obstacles, positive things, anything, as tokens. And what she meant was like, okay, you got married, that's a token. You ran a race, that's a token. You got a divorce, that's a token. And it helped her and it helps me not place too much like positive or negative emphasis on any one life experience. And it let me start to feel like I was living a really full life by collecting a lot of tokens. And it's helped me a lot with the things that I am not particularly happy that I've gone through to just see it as another token. When I went through my divorce, I found that I spiraled a lot and like got really confused and felt like a victim sometimes because there were bad things about it. It's a really difficult process. And I needed to learn how to go slower. I think divorce, you want it to happen quickly, but you need to move slowly. And that's really, really important because oftentimes I got really confused about why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like happy when I think I should feel sad? Why do I cry when I'm mad? Like there's so many things you're going to feel that make you ultimately spiral. And so to go slow is important, and to try to pay attention to where your attention is. If your attention is constantly on the other person that you might be getting a divorce with, that's not ideal. Like this person is someone you're in conflict with. And if you focus on them too much, you might forget to nurture who you are and the people that you're around that will make you feel better. I think when you're going through a divorce, you have to focus on what's useful. And that's if you're going through any hard thing, you have to focus on what's useful. And what's useful to you is unique to you. So someone might say, you need to go on a camping trip or you need to get away. But for you, it might be more useful for you to sleep and stay home for the whole weekend and only hang out with your best friend or something. And so I think the world is going to try to help you through this, but you need to be in touch and slow down and get in touch with what's actually useful for you, and not assign yourself the secondary emotion of this should help me, this should make me feel better. It's like, well, what is actually making you feel better? Your feelings during a divorce might feel like when a compass is going really crazy. And I'm smiling because it's a wild ride, right? Like it's a lot. And if your feelings feel like a compass that's going really crazy, you need to try and focus on the compasses in your life that are consistent. So let's just say you're having feelings about yourself, your future, maybe the person you're divorcing, and those are crazy compasses, but you have one compass that's consistent, which is, for me, it's like running makes me feel really good. So focus on these compasses that are consistent and guiding you and follow those. Oh, going to this coffee shop is really nourishing to me during this time. Okay, go every day. Like prioritize those. And then the other compasses that are going crazy are going to start to calm down and find their way. But don't follow the crazy ones or the ones that are spinning out. Follow the compasses that are consistent, and everything will start to find its direction. Okay, people are going to ask you about this divorce, probably. And I think it's really draining to come up with a nuanced answer for what's going on in your life every time somebody asks you what's going on in your life. And it will be really helpful if you don't already have an elevator pitch. That's kind of like what creatives say if they only have one elevator ride to pitch their movie. Have an elevator pitch for what you say about what you're going through. And it can be whatever you feel comfortable with, but that way you're not going deep into your soul to access this information and give it to the curious people who just probably want to be there for you. So come up with your elevator pitch, like whatever it is. I'm going through a divorce and I'm feeling this way, or whatever you want. Just make a decision and then stick to it, and don't let it invade you every time somebody asks about what's going on. I read something on Instagram where they were like, your friends should celebrate your marriage and your divorce. And I thought that was so funny because there's so much shame around it. And it's really weird it feels like a failure, it feels like giving up. So I do think that surrounding yourself with people who celebrate the times you commit and then the times that you commit to something else, which might be not to someone, that's important. Your community is important. And don't tell yourself you should be over it, because feelings are just energy. And if you're not over something or it's been stored inside, that was probably a really awesome adaptation that you made to try to help yourself. That's now finding its way to the surface, and it's going to find its way to the surface when it does. And that's not up to you. So the divorce was up to you, but the process and the change that it takes to actually go through it, that's not up to you. Divorce is an opportunity to strengthen muscles that you didn't have to use when you were married. I don't know what those muscles are. For me, the muscles were doing my own taxes and, being a homeowner. There were so many things I wasn't responsible for in my marriage, and the marriage wasn't healthy, but I leaned on somebody for certain things, right? And then I had to grow those muscles myself, and it was really scary, and it almost, kept me in it because I didn't know if I could do things by myself. And I got news for you. You just have to start doing it for yourself, and then you'll start to feel really proud of yourself and see that you can do anything, and you become this like capable person and not bitter. Here's the other thing. You don't have to be bitter if you go through a divorce. You can try to choose other words, other identifiers. You can have a sense of humor. You could be kind and loving. You could be sassy, but try to not become bitter just because you go through a divorce. The universe does not reward bitterness, and bitterness is just something that you wear. It's not nice to wear it. You think that it's not pleasant for other people, but I think it's the least pleasant for the person who's bitter. Laura, I am the same age as you, and I wanted to wish you luck as you go through this divorce journey, and just know that you're not the only one. Heather, who's 49, asks, do you have advice for me on how to return to running after an injury? Yes. I think there's levels of recovery. When you're injured, the first level of recovery is you're not in pain anymore. That's not the time to go ham. That's just you're not in pain anymore. A lot of athletes go 0 to 100 when they're just not in pain. That's just one step. The next step, I made this up and now I can't even remember. It's like you're not in pain anymore. Then the next step is you start to feel the urge to run. That feeling of you want to go on a run. That's another level of recovery. And then the next feeling is you start to get your bounce back, which the bounce is you feel like you could go chase an ice cream truck if it came by. That's the next step. And then the final step is when the muscles and things in your body that have nothing to do with running improve. Your skin improves, your whatever's been kind of neglected improves. That's actually the highest form of recovery from an injury. And if you can afford to give yourself the space to have your skin improve or whatever that means for you, that is when I would really recommend that you start seeing yourself as a fully healthy athlete again. And to give yourself that opportunity to recover in those 4 ways is so much better than starting and going ham when you simply are just out of pain. Another piece of advice when you're coming back from injury is to listen to music that made you feel like yourself when you were healthy and made you feel empowered. Wear clothes that make you feel good about yourself. So if you don't fit into, for some reason, when I got injured, I didn't fit into my clothes in the same way. And so I wore different clothes. I wore clothes that made me feel healthy and capable and not like I was too big for tiny spandex or something. Somebody told me that a heavy night of drinking takes you back 2 weeks in training. And so that was really helpful for me because it was a quantifiable, if I'm going to drink, I need to be okay with losing the last 2 weeks of fitness. So The only times I really drank heavily when I was competing hard would be at the end of a season when I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter these last 2 weeks, or right when I knew I was injured. Like when I last got injured bad, I broke my foot before my last movie premiere, and I did drink that night, but my foot was so broken. It was so swollen, but I was like, you know what? Going back 2 weeks, my foot's already broken. Like here, what's another, there was, it was like, I'm fine with this. And so I think when you're injured and you're coming, just have a sense of humor about it and have fun. Oh, here's another thing. When you're coming back from injury, figure out a way that will rewrite the story and the narrative for yourself that you're a winner. So let's just say you're going to miss, I was injured. I missed the Chicago Marathon, and I was like, okay, but I got a party invite with my friend, and I went to this party and I met an amazing group of people that I made a movie with. But I wouldn't have, if I had a losing mentality and I was like, I can't go to this race and I'm staying home, then I wouldn't have gotten anything out of it, right? And so if you have an injury, be determined that there's like a positive, there's some silver lining. And really the thing about silver linings is that you have to make them, right? You have to be present, and then you have to look for them, and then you have to make them, and then you have to tell yourself, that's why I got injured. It's important to be like a winning storyteller for yourself. And also injuries, like, okay, it's a part of the human experience. You're an athlete. Athletes get injured. Welcome to the world of being an athlete. Like, it happens. That's our first episode of Help Me Please. And I will end by sharing with you that I just premiered my new movie, and I like went out and stayed up really late. And then I woke up the next day and felt sort of like guilty for doing all that. And I have this problem where I am so on top of my stuff. So whenever I think it's from these athlete days of you don't stay up, you don't lose a night of sleep ever. You're not irresponsible. And I had this feeling that I was like going to ruin my life, even though it was the best night ever with all my friends. My dad came in, and I got this advice from my boyfriend, and he was like, he didn't even give me advice. He just was like, you're fine. And then I started it, but in a nice way. He wasn't entertaining the conversation with me. And I think that sometimes it's good when you don't sit down for coffee with your bullshit thoughts and you just are like, no, you're fine. Sometimes you got to talk to them. But I think this is one where if I tell myself in that voice, you're fine, enough times, I do think this silly little anxiety that I have will go away. I don't know. We'll see. We don't have to put that on. I don't know. Cut.